Afternoon, everyone. My name is Michelle Ray Meredith, and I would like to welcome you to this month's People Care Health Services Community Connections webinar. We have a wonderful guest speaker. Her name is Dr. Jamie Rife. Dr. Rife is a co-founder of Purposity, a tech platform created to inspire people to live generously and find purpose. Prior to Purposity, Dr. Rife spent over 15 years in public education, where she spent most recently served as a state coordinator for education of homeless children at the Colorado Department of Education. Her career in education also encompasses time spent as a district administrator, school administrator, homeless education liaison, graduation coach, and classroom teacher. Have you ever wanted to help make a difference in the community but don't know how to do so? Well, as we listen, Dr. Rife may have a solution for you. Dr. Rife has asked for this presentation to be interactive, so please feel free to ask your questions as we go through. Without further ado, People Care Health Services welcomes Dr. Jamie Rife. Dr. Rife, the web is yours.
Thanks, Michelle. I really appreciate it. So like Michelle said, my name is Dr. Jamie Rife. I'm one of the co-founders of Purposity. And like she's also said, my background is in education. I've spent the last 15 years as an educator. And most of that time was spent in the classroom, and then I was a district administrator, a school administrator. And then I spent part of my time, the last few years in education, working with children and youth experiencing homelessness. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the idea of where Purposity came from, because it was during that time of when I was working as a liaison that the idea of Purposity kind of came to be. And I'm going to do a lot of storytelling because that's kind of the heart of Purposity, but we're going to talk about the student that kind of sparked the movement. So like I said, I was working as a homeless education liaison in the metro Atlanta area. And so on my caseload were about 600 to 700 students in my district who were experiencing homelessness. And it was my job to help them succeed academically. And so at the time when we had this idea, there was a student who came to my office, and I remember her sitting down and looking at me, and she was 16 years old. She had walked from Guatemala to the United States to escape violence in Guatemala and had been placed with her uncle in my community. And she was 16. She had a 3rd grade literacy level in her native language. And so we were discussing what to do with her and her academic future. And, I remember saying to her, honey, do you have any clothes to wear to school? And she said, Miss Jamie, I have 2 pairs of pants and 2 shirts, I'm fine. And so it was, she also had done this with a 14-month-old baby with her. And so she had taken this journey by herself and had landed in my community. And so I asked her, well, do you need anything for the baby? And so she said to me, Miss Jamie, I could really use a stroller for her because I've been carrying her since Guatemala and my back is starting to hurt. And so she left my office and had asked for a few other things like a crib because the baby was sleeping on the floor with her, and some clothes for the child and a couple of other things. And at the time, while I had a lot of community resources and a lot of community support, I didn't have a really good way to be able to reach out to my community and say, hey, I need these very few items. So I'm going to show you what I did and then what happened. So this is the actual Facebook post. I don't do this very often, but I had gone to Facebook. I'm of the age where a lot of my friends were getting rid of strollers and cribs, and I thought, well, there's got to be someone who has these resources. And so I posted it to Facebook, and that's what's on your screen on the left was my actual personal post. And then on the right, I had emailed a faith community organization who had a Facebook page, and they would often post needs for me. And so it was wonderful because she did post the need, but on Facebook, she also posted, and it's hidden under that last kind of gray box on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. She also posted my email signature, which had my phone number and my office address and everything else. So when this went out on Facebook in my community, it was this great outpouring of love. I ended up with a crib, sheets. I had 2 strollers, 4 car seats. I would leave for meetings and come back, and my office would be just full of bins and bins and bins of girls' clothing. And so I kept taking kind of carloads out to this young woman at her uncle's house, and she was just amazed at the generosity of her community. And it was amazing, but it took me about 2 weeks before I was actually able to sort through everything and get her everything she needed. And it took about 40 hours of work to kind of manage these 2 Facebook posts. So I started thinking through, and this is called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And when we're looking at this, in order to kind of move up the pyramid, you need the item below it. So you kind of start with physiological needs, you then, which are like food, water, sleep, then safety, like having a home, then love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. And my role as a homeless liaison was to really get students up to that self-actualization point in the pyramid. And that's where a lot of our standardized tests and a lot of our assessments in the United States are based, is the highest level of Maslow's hierarchy. And so what I found, though, is that I was spending a ton of time on this bottom base of the pyramid, these physiological needs like food, water, a bed for my students to sleep in, just the most basic of items. And so in thinking through that, I kind of defined a problem. And that is that I had a lot of people in my community that really wanted to help. And the minute I told them the story of one person, they were more than willing to do anything they could to help her. But there wasn't a way for people to be able to do good when they want, for whom they want. And so, when we're talking about issues, I would go out and speak on this issue of homelessness in children and youth. And a lot of people would say, wow, this is such a huge issue. And like, for example, I don't know if you're aware of this, but in the state of Colorado, we identify approximately 24,000 students every year that are experiencing homelessness. And that does not include their parents. It doesn't include younger siblings. So estimates put that at almost double that of the number of people that meet the educational definition of homelessness. And so when you share things like that, people want to help, but they don't know where to start. And then they also really enjoy knowing the impact of their donation. And that is something that right now, if they can see where it's going, like with that Facebook post, they're very willing to help. And then the third thing I kind of thought about is that poverty is a major issue in education. Again, students who are so worried about that bottom level on Maslow's hierarchy of need just have a much more difficult time to getting to those points where we can help them succeed academically and meet some of the expectations of our standardized tests. So we were able to, I reached out to a friend of mine named Blake Canterbury, and Blake and I have known each other a really long time. And if you want, he does have a TED Talk, so you can search Blake Canterbury plus TED Talk and watch his TED Talk, and he really goes into depth on a lot of the reasons behind Purposity. But we were able to, I said to him, Blake, I know that you have always had a vision for using technology to bridge the gap between people in need and people that want to help locally. And Blake has always believed that local communities have the resources to solve a lot of their own community issues and problems. And so about 3 years ago, this month, I reached out and was doing this work and said, Blake, I know that you in your brain have kind of worked through this solution. This is what I'm doing. I really would love for us to figure out how technology solves this gap. And so we started working through a solution, and it was a model, and this is really Blake's vision, to be able to help others anytime, anywhere in a trusted and safe environment. And what he really wanted to do was connect donors directly to needs in an easy way, in a free way, so that 100% of your donation goes to the need. And when we talk about being able to meet needs, we mean for the most part locally, but then being able to mobilize in situations of global impact. For example, when the Haiti earthquake hit, Blake was able to head to Haiti and use Twitter to let Doctors Without Borders and some of the relief agencies know about this remote village that he was in. And through Twitter, they were able to airdrop everything that was needed. And that was kind of where he started to prove concept of the use of online platforms to be able to mobilize around specific needs. So then 100% of your donation, like I said, they wanted to make sure that it goes to the middleman, no one takes a cut. And then we wanted to create a way that needs were coming to you in real time as they happen, as opposed to nonprofits having to kind of hold on to things or create large drives, and letting you know that it's local needs in real time. And then again, kind of one of the basic premises is people helping people locally, and that it's giving as direct as giving can get. and that everyone can donate. I will tell you our average need, and I'll talk through in a minute what that looks like, is right around $30. So we wanted to create a way for everyone to be able to give, not just the affluent or those that were maybe religious about it. We wanted social interaction around doing good, and not just a social platform around like posting pictures of your lunch or, you know, things like that. So really a way to do good while using social media as well. And then having affirmation from your phone and using really your phone as a tool for good. Okay, so let's get into a little bit on who we are and what this looks like. So our mission that we have spent kind of 3 years coming to is we really want to inspire people to live generously and find purpose. And we're kind of working on this vision of a world united in generosity. So we believe that people find purpose through generosity, and that's where our really funny name comes from. Purposity is the combination of the words purpose and generosity. So again, around us, we see people in need. You know, I know a lot of us, like I live in Denver. I constantly see people that are experiencing homelessness, and you know, a lot of us aren't sure what to do about it. And Purposity really gives you that action step in a safe way that's meaningful, so that you do have something that you can do and you can feel like you're impacting your community. And then, so we protect staff's time, and I'll show what that looks like in a second. By giving community organizations access to essential items, and it allows them to really be able to focus on some of those longer, deeper issues. And like for me, that meant being able to focus on moving students up Maslow's hierarchy and towards kind of academic achievement. So Blake likes to call us the Uber for good. So it's really kind of like Uber. You can pull up and look for a car. With Purposity, you can pull up and look for all the needs in your community that are currently available. So essentially what we do right now is if you have signed up in a community to meet needs, in a community that's active, you get one weekly text. And those text messages, those needs are from verified organizations. We work with reputable nonprofits in a community to create a deep relationship. And there is a memorandum of understanding between the two agencies, and we've made sure that we've identified internal procedures to protect against fraud, waste, and abuse. And then we work with, like here in Denver, we work with The Gathering Place, Mercy Housing, Volunteers of America, Denver Public Schools, and then Urban Peak. So we try to really find organizations that have deep roots in the community. And then what they do is they load needs to the system, and I'll again show you what that looks like here in a second. And once a week on Monday nights, users in that community get a link with a text message, and they can go ahead and read that story of the individual in need. And if they want to purchase the item, they just click purchase now, and it takes them to Amazon to complete their purchase. And then we've also been able to create a profile feature, which tracks the number of needs you've met, your total dollar value, and then allows you to reread some of the stories.
Jamie,
yeah.
we have a question.
Yay! All right.
Do we get any follow-up with regards to what happened after we have fulfilled those needs?
Oh my gosh, yes, that's a great question. I love that. There is a way now when the organization receives the need, it is actually, they can take a picture of it and then send you a thank you message through the system.
Great.
And users also check out through their own Amazon account. So you can actually watch, just like you watch a delivery being delivered to your house through Amazon, you do the same thing with anything through Purposity. You can watch it being delivered to the nonprofit. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Great. Okay, so this is kind of the demo of what it looks like. So when you get a text message on Monday nights and you click through, this is where you'll land. So you'll see the organization that it's from, you'll see the price listed, and then you'll just kind of scroll down. You'll be able to just click purchase now after you've read the story. It takes you to Amazon. You just put the item in your cart and check out, choosing the Purposity wish list address at checkout. And if the need's been met, that button is grayed out, but you can scroll down and see the other needs in your community. And you'll see there, the gray button is, like I said, it grays out if anyone else has clicked through to purchase the item. That way the nonprofit isn't getting 25 of the same item or anything like that. So that is kind of the rough overview of what it does currently. And so we launched it in spring of 2016 in my former district in Metro Atlanta. Blake and I just contacted about 100 of our friends and said, hey, go ahead and try this. And we worked with 3 of the social workers in our community. And so we were able to, by May of 2017, actually have 6 communities running in over $40,000 worth of needs met. And then in that first 10 months, we had people from 36 states that had signed up asking for Purposity. And what we've seen is just this really amazing grassroots kind of movement with Purposity, where we don't do a lot of marketing. We don't do a lot to kind of push it out. It's really a community-based movement. And right now we have people in all 50 states signed up, just kind of waiting for it to launch in their state and their city. And so that first year in my former district, really makes me happy. We were able to help 675 students. We had a little over $18,000 donated. And then here's the part that I'm really that makes me so hopeful. So if you think back to that story of that young woman, I said about 40 hours just managing that Facebook post. Through Purposity, I could have done that in probably 10 to 12 minutes. I could have just loaded the needs in the system and they would have just shown up. So we were able to save staff in my former district in 2016, 2017, a little over 1,170 hours spent tracking down those kind of one-off items. I'll give you another example. I remember I had a student who he went to high school all day but was working 3rd shift at a cement factory. And so he needed a bike helmet because his only mode of transportation was his bike. So I spent days trying to figure out where to get him a bike helmet. And then finally, I just ended up going to Target and buying him one because I couldn't spend any more time on it. And that's kind of the day-to-day of a lot of people doing direct service in school systems and then also in nonprofits is they struggle with having the right resources at the right time. And it becomes a little bit difficult in all of the other day-to-day that they're doing. So we're really pleased to be able to offer them a really simple solution to be able to meet the needs of their students and clients. So in 2016, 2017, we essentially launched in 3 major communities, which is Atlanta, downtown Atlanta, Chattanooga, Tennessee, and then Forsyth County was my former district. And you can see there, Atlanta launched in February, Chattanooga had launched in January, and Forsyth had launched in September. So this is a number of needs that we met in each of those communities, only for the school districts, and then the total dollars given, and then the staff time that we saved their staff. And I have to tell you, that's one of the biggest wins is whenever I train someone at an organization, they're always just so excited about how easy it is to post a need and then how quickly it shows up. So it's been really a blessing. I kind of feel like Santa Claus every day. So after this pilot was kind of over, what we kind of found was that schools were telling us this is a really great tool for community and parent engagement. Another thing that we're super excited about is that Purposity has become incredibly popular with millennials. So we're able to track the data on who is meeting needs. And so, for example, in Chattanooga, about 33% of our users there are millennials, but they're meeting about 40% of the needs there. And it's just because everything is able to be done right through their phone. And like I said, the average need is right around $30. So it's a pretty low threshold to giving, but it allows them to make a meaningful impact without having, thousands of dollars to be able to give. And so that's been something that we've seen is that our donor base tends to be 25 to 44-year-olds. It's mostly women, but it is within that age range for the most part, which is, again, really exciting. And then with Purposity, one of the things that we've seen in addition is that it creates this little ecosystem in each community where you have communities, nonprofits, and recipients, the people that are receiving the donations, all really working together to feel supported and meaningful within the context of their community. So last year, about this time, we started doing kind of a listening tour. And one of the things that we're really proud of is we use what's called user-centered design. And so we reached out to users, we reached out to organizations that were posting with Purposity, and we asked them, what do you want to see next? And we spent a lot of time asking them this question and recording their answers and figuring out what they wanted to see. And so some of the things that the users sent us was that they wanted to be able to see, they wanted a profile that would track all the needs that they met. It would track the amount of their total donations. They wanted to go back and read the stories of the people that they have impacted. And then they wanted to be able to share on social media and on email that they've met a need and invite their friends to do the same. So last year, about this time, we launched profiles. And it basically does all of that. You can upload a photo, and then it tracks everything that you've done in Purposity and allows you to kind of go back and be able to see your impact.
Does it give a dollar amount, Jamie?
It does. Yeah, it does. It gives a total dollar amount, and then it gives the number of needs that you've met. Great question. Yeah. Are there any other questions right now?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Michelle. The other thing that users said they wanted to do is that since all the donations are going directly to nonprofits, they wanted the ability to write it off. So last year, again, about this time, we started wireframing out a solution so that people can actually print out a tax write-off PDF form of all the donations that they've made on Purposity, and they're able to use that in doing their taxes each year. All right, and then this goes back to the earlier question about how do we know, or how do we kind of close that loop? Social workers, when I spoke to them, were just so incredibly excited about Purposity. And they said, and this really surprised us, they said the one thing though that they want is to be able to thank the donors specifically. And so we built out a way, so when they get a need, they take a picture, and we told them to be creative. They can take selfies. You might just get a picture of the item itself, but they can upload the picture to the Purposity platform, and then with a little message that just, you know, like, hey, just wanted to say we really appreciate the donation of the shoes. You really made this kiddo's day. And then they hit submit, and then we text it to the user that met that need. And I have to tell you, when I meet needs and then get that thank you message, it just makes my day, because it usually comes in the middle of my work day. And it's just such a great way to kind of feel good about something that you've done. So with the thank yous, they are personalized, and you do get them directly from the staff member that's requested the need. And then that kind of, again, creates the loop of transparency and you knowing that your donation has gone to the nonprofit. And then all of your thank yous also live in your profile. So it's kind of fun. When I pull up my profile, there are pictures of the school social workers with the needs that I've met along with the thank you. So it's kind of it's always fun. So then the other thing that users told us they wanted is they wanted the ability to be able to do good with other people in their community. So for example, if you're thinking civic organizations or community organizations, and so we were able to build a team function. And so with the team function, this is the Jeff and Jen team, which is a morning show in Atlanta. And they have, you can see 952 needs met. There's their total dollar donation. And then this is a number of active teammates. And though we don't normally do drives, it's been kind of fun with Jeff and Jen, because on occasion they'll call us and say, okay, Purposity, we've heard this story, we really want to help. So I'll give you, for example, in February, they reached out to us about a local police officer in Atlanta. He had 6 children under the age of 10. And 2 years ago, he had lost his wife. And then that week in February, their home had burned down. And they had absolutely nothing. And so this police officer, being a single parent with 6 children under the age of 10, that family had just suffered so much loss. And so Jeff and Jen reached out and they said, we want to be able to help. So we reached out to the police officer, got a list of everything he needed once he was able to secure a new home. And then live on air, we crowdsourced his entire home for him. So everything from replacing the children's bikes to their lunch boxes, to clothes, to bedding, We were able to do that all in one morning in about 20 minutes just through this Jeff and Jen morning show team, which was really amazing. And then we did a similar thing during the holidays. Again, we don't normally do drives, but Jen's daughter, who's 2, she's probably 3 now, had had cancer treatment. So Jen has a really soft spot for the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, the cancer patient ward. So we were able to crowdsource Christmas to make sure all the children staying there inpatient during the holidays had at least 1 or 2 gifts. So that was really amazing. And that's kind of the power of teams. And it's been just incredible to be able to watch what people can do when they're pulled together in a meaningful way. And then, Michelle, to answer your question, this is kind of what your profile looks like. Like, it tells you how many needs you've met and then your total dollar value. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so we started with school systems, and that is still our bread and butter, but I will say that we've expanded. So as we started rolling out in school districts, nonprofits in the community started reaching out and saying, this is amazing, we would like to be able to do this too. So we have been able to, in most communities, expand beyond the school district. And like I said, we always start kind of with children and youth, but like in Metro Denver, we are working with Volunteers of America, the Bill Daniels Veteran Services Center, to help veterans as they transition out of homelessness into being housed with everything they need for their home. We do a lot with people experiencing homelessness. We do a lot for low-income seniors. For example, this week we had a senior. She is homebound on a fixed income. Her medical condition doesn't allow her to get out very often. So she needed a fan. And so through Purposity, we were able to get her a fan to make sure she stays safe and cool all summer long. We also serve those with any mental or physical disabilities, low-income families, and then some refugees and immigrants. These tend to be the subpopulations that we work with most. And then a lot of people ask, you know, Jamie, how often are your needs met? Like, how long do they sit there? We're really, really proud to say that if a need is pushed live in the system, it is met. We do a lot of filtering on our side, and then we work really closely with the nonprofits to make sure that the needs that are submitted to Purposity are ones that are appropriate for our donors and that they meet kind of the criteria for Purposity. So and I changed the stat this morning, I apologize, I didn't change it over here. We have about 5,300 needs that we've met so far. And we're getting close to having 14,000 users. And like I said, they tend to be all across the country. A lot of them are in the major metro areas that we've launched, but we do keep track and we have individuals in all 50 states at this time. Okay, so
Jamie, we have another question.
Sure.
Yeah, the question is there anything that's out of reach? So if there was, say, a People Care Health Services client that was in need of a scooter, maybe a higher dollar amount, is that something too high that, or is that something that could be put on Purposity?
Yeah, that's a perfect question. That's really great. So there are a couple of things that we work through. Obviously, it has to be available on Amazon, which is not a limitation in a lot of ways, because pretty much everything is available on Amazon. But because of IRS tax laws, it does have to be under $250. And the reason that is because once an item hits $250, the nonprofit has to physically sign off that they received it. And we haven't quite built that into the system yet. So currently, needs have to be under $250. They have to be for an actual client or a student. And like I said, the average need tends to be around $30, but we have done things like beds. We've done, for example, we had a student who was wheelchair bound. And so his parents were having a hard time as he grew, being able to get him out of the wheelchair into the bathtub. So through Purposity, we were able to get him a transfer bench so that he could get easily from the wheelchair on his own to the bathtub and saving his parents a lot of time and energy. So we definitely have met medical needs in the past like that.
Would we be able to maybe adopt a family for the holidays and work through Purposity to get their needs met that way?
Yeah, it depends. So the answer is anything's possible. And then last year, so like I said, we kind of piloted that idea with Jeff and Jen because that's kind of outside of our norm. So, but what we were able to do is we identified like 5 families in Metro Atlanta. And then through their team, again, live on air, we told the stories of those individuals, and their team received a text message where they met the needs right then. So it is a function and a feature that we are looking to scale and looking for partners in doing that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
perfect.
you.
Great. So some of the things that we have for key performance indicators for nonprofits, some of the data that we track are like dollars given, obviously the total monetary value of the items given to each organization, the amount of time that we're saving them. And that's an estimation based on survey results and some other data that we've gathered, both quantitative and qualitative. And then the number of items given, and then kind of how much time and energy salary-wise we're saving these nonprofits. So these are some of the things that we kind of track for them. But beyond the numbers, Purposity is really more than just statistics. It's really about the human experience. So one of the things that we're really, really strict about, and this is part of the memorandum of understanding between the 2 agencies, is that we're never shared any sort of information that can identify the student or client, because we want to make sure we preserve their dignity. And so again, that's part of the MOU, just making sure that all sorts of FERPA, whether it be FERPA or HIPAA or whatever your privacy laws are in your industry, that those are guarded. And then we want to be a lifestyle brand around generosity and giving. There's so much good that comes out of being generous and living generously that we want people to experience that. And again, we really want to be a way for neighbors to directly help their neighbors, while allowing social workers and nonprofits to be able to focus on some of the long-term solutions and not have to work through some of those. Again, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy, not looking at just the bare bottom of the pyramid, but working with their clients and their students to be able to work their way towards self-actualization. So a lot of people ask, 100% of our donations go to meeting needs as a user. So then how do you guys keep the lights on and keep the text flowing? And so we actually work on a sponsorship model. Similar to other tech platforms, we work with certain organizations who have said we want to be part of our local communities movement. Sometimes it's regionally, and then sometimes we do have sponsors that are statewide. And so what they do is they kind of power free access to Purposity for school districts and nonprofits in their community. So we don't charge school districts, we don't charge nonprofits, and we don't charge users, because we really want everyone to have access, and we don't want that to be a barrier. So we work with sponsors to make sure that 100% of donations are flowing from users to needs, and we create a really great way for service providers to easily and efficiently meet needs. And then their name is actually placed in the text message, and you can see that on the right. So for example, in Chattanooga, the Community Foundation and the McCullen Foundation are 2 of our sponsors. So their name goes in all of the text messages as powered by, and then their name is also on, then their name and their logo are on the Chattanooga community page, and then also are on each of the needs pages. So they're pretty predominantly sponsored and shown. And then, so this is kind of what it looks like. You can see the text message. This is what a need looks like, kind of the demo I showed you. And then on the right, you can see where their name is on the community page as well. And then if you're on desktop, the logo actually displays it. It's a little bit much if you're on your phone, so we don't have a logo there. But that is where the bulk of our revenue comes from, and it's how we keep needs flowing and keep kind of the platform running. So I want to talk a little bit about just feedback from schools and users and nonprofits. So if we look at, I don't know if anyone watches The Voice, but Jason Wilkes is one of the voice contenders for this season. And he was one of our early adopters back before he was on The Voice. And he's a millennial and just really, really spoke to us when we did an interview with him about being able to use your phone for good. And he just loves the fact that, your phone is oftentimes a source of distraction, but this is a really good way to put your phone to good use. And then we have Dr. Karstarfin, who's from Atlanta Public Schools. And in Atlanta Public Schools, we launched last January. And she and all of her social workers have just been so incredibly happy with how the tool enables them to provide kind of wraparound specifically for their children and youth experiencing homelessness. So in APS, we have started with just their homeless education program. And, I have social workers who say they go into the home with the items that they've received from Purposity, and families are just blown away by the individuals, what their community is doing, and specifically what their school community is doing. So it really provides a way for schools to engage in a whole new way with their community. Again, here's the homeless liaison, Tanya Malone. She just really talks about, she's from Atlanta Public Schools as well, about the families feeling received, welcome, and truly cared for. And then Ian Cohen is with Volunteers of America, Colorado. And he just really talked about, that we're able to provide supports to help an individual reach housing stability and be able to stay there. So oftentimes when you are experiencing homelessness and you're moving back into a home, you don't have dishes or a couch or sheets or a bed or all of those things we kind of take for granted. So through Purposity, we're able to provide those things so that individuals can really focus on staying housed and not having to use some of their valuable resources for that. And there just aren't a lot of resources in kind of the homelessness world to be able to provide those essential items. And through Purposity, we're able to do that for them. Okay, so where are we right now? This is kind of where we've launched. You can see Denver's at the top of the list. Atlanta is in there, Nashville, Cobb County, Forsyth, Towns, Chattanooga, Henry, Union, Cleveland, Redding, California, Douglas, Georgia, and Bremen City, Georgia. So we're kind of centralized in the Southeast for the most part, but we're growing exponentially across the US. And so where we're headed, here in Colorado, we'll be launching Aurora, Colorado. We're having a lunch party next Friday night. Jefferson County, there'll be a lot more communities in Atlanta, Austin, Charlotte, Chicago, and DC. And like I said, people in all 50 states have signed up to be part of the movement to live on purpose. So I want to take a quick, I know that we've been asking questions, but Michelle, are there any other questions?
We do have a couple of questions that we'd like to ask. One is, Jamie, if I don't want text messages coming to my phone once a week, am I able just to go to the needs page and decide to, provide something that way, or do I have to be opt in all the time? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I will say, because it's a text messaging platform, you could sign up, get the first text message to confirm, and then you could type stop to stop receiving the text message. The issue with that is with text messaging services, it can't discern between, do you want to receive only thank you messages or do you want to receive needs texts? So you wouldn't get all of the thank you messages then. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so it's kind of like an all or nothing. Because if you don't want to get the weekly text, that's totally fine. But that means you won't get the thank yous.
Yeah. What kind of information do you need for the providers? I mean,
for the users or
yeah, just name and address, or?
Yeah, great question. So here's what happened. When you go to sign up, you put in your cell phone number and your zip code, and then we send you a text, and that confirms that we can text you. And then you click through that, and based on your zip code that you entered in that first step, it gives you all of the communities in your state that you can sign up for. So if I put in a Colorado zip code, I would see Denver, Aurora, Jefferson County, Boulder. And then if I don't live in any of those communities, I would just sign up for the Colorado list. And then when your community is going to launch, we go ahead and notify you. And then we do ask for your email. And then that's it. It's pretty simple. And you create a password.
Great. We would like to invite anyone to ask questions, but we have another couple of questions here. Sure. Jamie, where is Purposity within Colorado currently?
That's a great question.
Is there other areas?
Yeah, so we are, let me tell you the state of Colorado. Denver launched in November. Aurora will be launching next Friday night. So there is a launch party. If you want to learn more about it, just go to Facebook. It's called the Live on Purpose Party. It's been a lot of fun. Leadership Aurora, which is the leadership program for the chamber there, has adopted as their class project to launch Purposity in Aurora. So that will happen next Friday night. Jefferson County will also be launching probably in the fall. And then we're hoping Boulder at some point, but we're not 100% certain on the date for that yet. And then what we do is we create a list of communities that are interested. And so we have an interest form. And when we are looking where to go next, that's kind of what we pull up and see what sort of interest there is in a community.
Okay. And I was just kind of curious, because you use Amazon for the purchasing of these items. Is there a way that if I or someone has selected to purchase the item and it gets to the person that is in need, but it's not working correctly, is there a way of getting that return for them?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's pretty cool because we use Amazon wish list feature. Amazon sends a little slip of paper in every box. So if it needs to be returned because it's the wrong size or it's not working properly or anything like that, there's actually a return and exchange feature in Amazon that allows them to have an order number, and they can go ahead and initiate that process. That's a great question.
But they can't ever get a refund of those dollars. They have to exchange for something.
Yeah, so what would happen is they would have to go back to the nonprofit who has that little slip of paper and do a refund or an exchange. And if it were just returned, the money goes back to the donor. Do you know what I mean? Because it was on their Amazon account.
And just a couple more questions that I'd like to ask. If we're looking to do a story, who do we contact?
That would be me. Okay. I handled most of the communications. So I would be happy if you want to share my email. You can also just email in hello@purposity.com. It's just HELLO@purposity.com, and that will get forwarded to me.
Great. And, this is pretty inspiring to hear. So if any one of us would like to join you or get involved, how do we do that?
Yeah, so the best thing you could possibly do is sign up to Meet Needs. And even if your community is not live yet and you just want to see how it works, sign up for just the state of Colorado, and there are live needs. You won't get the text message yet, but there are needs on the Colorado page for other communities. And I would just encourage you to meet needs, whether it's locally or not, just to see how it works. And know that you're truly impacting an individual. Like, it's really, as I was sitting here, I got a text message from one of the social workers, and it's her and two of her staff members putting together bunk beds, and these two children just with the biggest smiles on their faces because they don't have a bed to sleep in. They've been sleeping on the floor. And so to be able to see that day in and day out, like, you're truly making an impact for a family or an individual that, there's just really no other way for them to have access to these resources.
Wow. So many stories. I'm sure that you have a lot that you could share. But is there one that just totally, since the beginning, you had your one that kind of inspired this, but that just stands out that you could share with our listeners today?
Yeah, so this gets me a little teary because this young woman is incredible. So the valedictorian for one of the high schools in Atlanta Public Schools last year was experiencing homelessness. And when we launched in Atlanta Public Schools, she came to the press conference and spoke. And she is such an incredible young woman. And she and her mother, her mom was a single mom, and had some medical conditions and couldn't keep up with the medical costs. So she and her mom had been living in a car. Yet this young woman managed to be valedictorian of her entire class. And we were able to, through Purposity, she got into Yale. And through Purposity, we were able to get her pretty much everything she needed for her dorm room. So the extra long sheets, the bedding, you know, any appliances that she needed, and really send her off to college equipped with every other thing that every other college student who has parents that can provide for them will have. Particularly in an Ivy League school, we just wanted her to have, you know, the same place to start. And so that always has moved me, because to think, you know, that a young person could, in spite of this, just achieve so highly and be a part of that, I think is really, it always has touched me.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Jamie. We just have a few more minutes, so if there's any questions, we'll leave this open for just a couple more minutes. Jamie, is there anything else that you would like to add before we go on to end for today?
No, I just, you know, another way to get involved is to follow us on social. And there is the email in case anyone wants to reach out who's attended today and get in contact with us. And then we are on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Medium.
Excellent.
We'd love a follow.
Very inspiring, like I said. At this time, we don't have any other questions for you, Jamie, and I would like to thank our audience as well as you, Jamie, for joining us today on People Care Health Services Community Connections. Community Connections airs every second Wednesday of the month at 1 p.m. So mark your calendars until next month. Let your days serve you well. Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.